Joachim, we meet again, this time formally, to discuss the article on John 9, an
That's right.
article that some of my interlocutors have very much appreciated. One or two has hated because it did not confirm their expectations, and I'm sure that many potential readers would have questions. So, by all means, do introduce yours.
Yes, sir. I'm speaking as a blind man, perhaps on behalf of all blind men.
Okay.
This is
Natural blind man, though.
perhaps naturally so. Yes, I dare say. And that's really my first question. Whether I understood that correctly, whether I should think of the blind man as pagan man, as the man who does not know, has no cause to pretend otherwise, and can therefore receive truth. Is that something like that? Is that what the blind man is there to represent? Natural reason, perhaps.
Well, the blind man in the story, he's not necessarily. I mean, he's not a pagan, right?
No, but he doesn't represent the authorities in any way. He's
Okay,
just a guy,
but he's
right?
still a man of the law.
Yes, under the law.
Yeah, well, okay. Now, you had the problem back in those days, according to our chronicles, the authorities were supposed to have been working with the Romans,
Mm-hmm.
and they were the bad guys. Whereas
Mm-hmm.
there were good rabbis, and there was, the tradition of good interpretation of the Bible that was eclipsed by these traders,
Mm-hmm.
authoritative traders, and so you have rebuking of them in the Gospels. Now, how do you rebuke a false authority? A bad approach to the law. It presents itself as representing the law. The priests represented the law. How do you rebuke them? We represent the law. Well, the only way, the only solid way, the only concrete way is to illuminate the question of the principles of interpretation.
Yeah.
How do you interpret? On what grounds do you interpret? What are the principles of proper interpretation of authority? And well, those principles are not inherited. They're not given by the authority. And they are yet there. So how do you account for them? And I think that John 9 is pointing to this problem and is suggesting that those principles are hidden in human nature.
Okay, I get you.
So his blindness, the blind man's blindness, is a natural blindness. But what does that mean? And of course, natural blindness, I cannot see with my eyes, but that has larger implications,
Mm-hmm.
greater implications. So the parable, what I call parable, because what's not a parable in the Gospels? The formal parables that are told by Jesus are within the context of the larger parable.
Yeah.
So now what I call the parable of the blind man there is showing that our physical problems have roots, and they are not to be understood in merely physical terms, even though they are physical problems. We don't need to have a leap to some kind of esoteric, abstract reading of problems. So we say, well, it's all a spiritual blindness. Well, not quite, not yet. We have so-called physical problems. Now, these physical problems, however, are not just simply or immediately, directly to be dismissed in terms of a spiritual problems, the soul. So you take a leap. No, they are practical everyday problems, because the physical is to be understood morally, ethically. The human body is not just a piece of meat. It has a dignity which we can call poetic or moral. The human body is not born like a pig's body, because it is born turned and to turn toward the good. So it is to do good things.
To exercise capacities of the human soul, you might say.
Yeah, it is to serve the good. We cannot just go around and behave like pigs and then expect to be satisfied like pigs. We will be frustrated because we're not doing what we're born for. So,
of course, the Christ is, as it were, born in the manger, however.
Yes, a manger suggests that it's still something that was made there, and that there is something to be, to be recovered on that level. So among the derelicts of humanity, also you could say, there are these two animals, but these two beasts, but and the farmers and these very simple people who are tied to the sheep, and they're very much the link between the human being and the other animals is evident. But it is precisely on this question and from this point of reference that we can best appreciate the telos of the human being, because man is born as a beast, as any other animal, as a donkey, as a lamb, physically, but at once there is something shining in that night of the flesh. There's something divine shining, and that is what this body, this physical body, not of a lamb, but it is as the body of a lamb, is to turn to if it is to fulfill its mission.
Yeah, there are icons of the nativity that refer really to the tomb in some way, that the birth is a kind of a being born into a kind of death, as it were. But
the birth, the three moments are indissolubly linked: the birth, the cross, and the resurrection.
Yeah.
there is no separating of these three. There are three poles that help us understand the whole, or the meaning of the whole.
Yeah.
So okay, so the guy is blind in John 9, and that is the big question. So why are we in this situation where we are? Yes, you could say that we're morally blind. We don't know what the heck we're doing, but also, how do we understand the physical blindness, the physical infirmity of man? What is this due to? Why are we fallen into this world of death, of infirmity?
Right. Yeah, and then you ask, is it a punishment as a kind of a preparation? Is it or I mean the parable addresses that obviously first. The first conclusion is, well, it must be. Well, the question that the disciples ask is it because this man sinned or because his parents perhaps sinned? Right. So is that what you're talking about? As a kind of a ways in which we struggle to understand man's infirmity as perhaps somehow imposed, or to be resolved somehow morally.
Okay. So the question is, if it is, the big question of the will.
Yeah.
At the time that I thought about offering a reading of John 9, I was responding to an interlocutor, an Anglican scholar of theology, where he was stating that this parable, or the story, was about God willing evil, or God willing the infirmity.
Yeah.
And he could not see how this could not be the case in this story. So this prompted me to elucidate the matter, and show that, for one thing, what it is indicating is not that anyone is willing the situation, our infirmity, but that it is in the nature of our things. Now we are in this condition. Now you could also see how this relates to the Bereshit in the Genesis, with in the Garadam, the Garden of Eden, Garden. Sorry. Did Adam mean to do something bad? Was the problem his will? Did God will the punishment?
No indication. No indication of that.
Well, I mean, you could infer that Adam willed to go against the Father, and then the Father willed to punish him because he's very severe. But that's an inference. There, if you read it carefully, then there is none of this, none of all of this. The guy, poor Adam, didn't know what the heck was going on, frankly. He left the girl go on her own. I mean, what is he going to do? Control her? He's not a control freak. Man is not by nature, Adam is not by nature a controlling animal. He lets the girl go her way. So the girl goes her way, and she bumps into this voice. She hears this voice. And the voice, tells her about things that she didn't really know about. No clearly, no directly. And so she was easily fooled and distracted, and then she goes along to Adam and says, here, have a bite. And he's working on his, he's chopping up wood, whatever he's doing. He's naming. And he says, yeah, what's the matter? Here, have a bite. Oh, yes, okay. And he said, oh, shoot, what did you make me do? I was busy naming here, and you give me this. So, darn it, we made a mistake. Okay, it was just a mistake. Well, what do they say today? What is what do the plebes say today in contemporary English? Shit happens.
Yeah.
And okay, so then you try to make up for it. You get scared and you cover up. You try to patch up the problem, and what did you do? Well, well, it's in the nature of things that you have to leave now. Not because I want you to leave. I would want you to stay if we left it at that. But you cannot. You cannot stay now. You know you can't stay. Now things have changed, yeah? You have opened up a Pandora box, and now you have to play the game. Okay? So you're faced with this situation. Now, that's why we're here, right? We have this twofold situation. We have the temptations, but the temptations are at once a challenge, right? So you make an attempt, temptatio, you make an attempt to get out of it, to transcend that that infirmity. But I mean, this is a big challenge, and how this plays out is a big deal. So I think that John 9 goes back. You can understand it well in terms of the Genesis story of Adam and Eve, and see that the question is not, whether somebody wants things to be the way they are or not, but that there are possibilities, and that there's the possibility of evil. There's a possibility of falling.
Yes.
And that the banning of Adam and Eve from the garden, the formal banning, is just a manifestation of a prior fall. You see, they had fallen already, and now the God on top is making it manifest to them. What they were trying to cover up is manifest. You have fallen already. What are you trying to cover up there? You can't stay. You know that. You've already fallen. If you stayed, you'd be staying in a dream world, symbolically staying, and only nominally. But that would just be a mask, a cover up. So you have to face the significance of that fall. Okay. How do you do that? And I think John 9 points again in the right direction.
I see. So the blind man is a man who is suffering from some kind of evil. He's suffering from some sort of infirmity.
Sure. We don't want to underestimate. There's a lot of evil in this world.
Yeah.
I mean, garbage. We children are born in horrible situation. Doesn't have to be physical, blindness.
No.
Because that's a great Platonic,
yes,
metaphor for seeing things now.
Yeah.
But we're born in a crappy situation. Parents who are alcoholics, or no parents, and of course the society itself is infirm, is in infirmity. It is decrepit. It is obscene. It is violent with respect to human nature. So why is that? Why am I born in this situation? And was it God who willed this? Because God willed the kid to go to Auschwitz?
Mm-hmm.
How is this terrible thing possible? Oh, but it's now here is my Anglican interlocutor. Oh, but it's the mystery of God. Well, this feeds right into the new atheism mockery
Hmm.
of the
Yeah.
Bible. This is pathetic. It's pathetic. I don't care
It's
what kind of mystery it is. How can a God want this?
you'd call it neo-romantic, that appeal to mystery in that way as something inaccessible to reason, or perhaps absurd, at least from our point of view.
You could say that too. I mean, but because if you want to take it seriously, then you say, well, look, okay, so God will this. God will Auschwitz. I don't want that God.
Yeah.
Oh, because there's a plan. I don't give a damn about his plan now. There's no
Hmm.
plan that can justify these horrors. And what about today? I mean, today is sort of an Auschwitz in preparation on a global
Hmm.
scale. So,
Yeah.
how is this? What about all of this, the victims of this atrocious hypocrisy of a regime that is setting up a new morality based on the abolition of any traditional morality, a
Yeah, which
morality
our
that
children will be born into from now on.
absolutely, so the morality of the technological society. What about this? Why does God want this to happen for the sake of a higher Machiavellian end? Why? I don't want that God.
Yeah.
On the other hand, oh, but because it's he wants us to be free. No, 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 no,
Hmm.
no, 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 no. It's not adequate. I think it is not. Reason tells you it's not adequate. It doesn't make sense. So, on the other hand, um, there is the nature of things, and now, given the nature of things, there is a dimension in which people are born, people have fallen. We should probably not even say my child is born. My child is fallen. He fell into
From where?
he fell into this world.
He
For my
fell from the bird in the sky.
yeah
Little,
yeah
what you might call it?
yes
The stork.
the stork. No, yes, right, yeah, but he fell um from what traditional Christianity calls the integral condition of man.
Hmm.
So there is an integral condition of man, and from there can be a fall into the corrupt condition of man. So, okay, how do we understand that fall? It is a possibility,
Hmm.
and things happen. Now, that possibility, however, can be understood as just a curse, and so, oh my goodness, that's it, or as an opportunity to give testimony to that original condition.
Hmm.
Um, and well, what else can a human being do? Can he establish a new world based on that corruption? Is that what we're born for? Is that what we fell for, so to speak, to build
Hmm.
a new world, a new paradise on earth?
Yeah, right.
Or is our only way to partially redeem our fallenness to bear witness to that condition whence we fall? Okay.
To
And
manifest nature in the realm of chance. I have in my notes here. To see if you would agree with that expression.
say that again.
To manifest nature in the realm of chance, or actuality in the realm of possibility.
What is that?
A reference to previous discussions between the two of us on evil, which ended in with you describing it in terms of the good as actuality and evil as possibility, or
Yeah.
actual necessity. Actual necessity. The good
Actual
as actual necessity. That's how you describe it.
actual necessity, it would be the good.
Yeah. And I guess Aristotle would describe human action in terms of also strong possibility. It could be done either poorly or well, as opposed to, one could it could either rain now or later, as it were, which would be of the order of weak possibility, if I understand correctly.
What is this weak possibility, or the strong
possibility? Whatever may chance to occur. Simply.
Okay, and strong possibility would be
done either well or poorly.
Oh, so the strong possibility is the possibility of man to do good.
Yeah. For instance, it might also apply to other things, like you could have anything, I suppose, could go well or poorly, right? The things have certain natures, but they fall short of them. That's why I brought it up.
Yes. Yes, and there's a you'd have you're best off betting on man than on the weather.
Yeah.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
That's fair enough.
Sure. That's our work then.
Yes. Keeping in mind this distinction between now in John 9, the what's the alternative to the parable, to the lesson of the parable? Well, you just accept that your situation is willed, and now you abide by the laws.
Yeah.
And the laws are there to remind you that the situation is the way it is, because it's willed that way, and it's your fault if something happens, and it's somebody's, we're all responsible, and that's the way it is, and the law confirms that there's nothing to ask really as to the meaning, and there's no why to ask.
What sort of like the laws of nature? Perhaps you're born blind because the laws of nature deterministically banked that out, and you popped out, couldn't see.
Except for the fact, of course, that there's no laws of nature for the ancients.
No, not for the ancients, but for us today.
The laws of God. Well, it is more absurd because you can still argue with God in the Bible, but you cannot.
Sure, the burning bush.
Yes,
the burning bush. You could look at that and say, well, what are you gonna do? It's on fire. What are you gonna do?
Well, that's a mystery that is, again, it's only it's only Moses, it's the prophet, it's the but Jacob you argues and fights,
no, but Moses asks, like, what do I call you? He looks at that bush and it's, what do I call this? Kind of like Adam wants to give it a name. What are you seeing there?
Yeah, there are problems there too. The inelectability of what is given, that is questioned in John 9. So it is subverted it is overturned, the inelectability of the given.
And this is no, please continue.
Well, and we're not even, and we're far from the invention of natural laws or of
No,
nature's
no, of
laws.
course.
So I mean, once it takes, but even without bothering with his nature's laws, which are simply a manifestation of this this kind of conceit that posits that problems as ineluctable, and is
That's why I brought it up. Yeah.
yes.
Yeah, to draw a parallel between. I mean, you've compared the Quran to the laws of nature before. This very immanentistic, just so sort of view of things that's coming that we're discussing now.
Well, the laws of nature, of course, do not presuppose any other world.
That's, but for all intents and purposes, the way in which these laws are treated is.
Which laws?
Well, be it the Quranic ones, as from directly from the sky or from heaven, that is to say, but even what people imagine is then the literal sky. I mean, you could, if in the world we live in, it's and compare that to the laws of nature, which are just okay. They come out of a kind of a quantum realm of just, I don't know what to call it. It's
well,
it's kind of,
if you want to highlight a significant distinction, the laws of the Quran have are pregnant with ethics and they have ethical import, so they can guide the community. They can bring the tribes together and the brutal, fierce tribes, and they can subdue them, and they can foster peace, even in fact imperial peace, the peace of the empire. Now the laws of nature do nothing of the sort. The laws of nature are working together with the rise of technology as this which requires the destruction of humanity, not just the submission of humanity to Allah, the strong God, but the destruction of humanity.
Yeah,
that's what it requires.
All right. Well, let's not do that.
Well, they cannot destroy human nature. What they can do, however, is, as I have insisted in various places, they can obscure it, and they can, of course, cripple the upbringing in of the human being, its development.
The particular human,
Well, masses of humans, the crowds of humans.
No, but I mean the actual human beings here.
Yeah, well, okay, the crowds of it's
not men as such, but a whole lot of them.
Well, I did not mean that in terms of numbers.
No,
but all of these people who are crippled are not going to be satisfied, because their nature, they're not born for this. Okay, so they're you have a child. The child has fallen into this world to bear witness to God, and now you tell him, you raise him to believe that there is no God other than those that he can project himself into on the screen of his virtual world, so metaverse. So his own avatars, mediated by technology. So obviously he is confused now, because he is born for something, but he's told to go somewhere else. And it's everywhere. It's virtually ubiquitous. And then he is told that he comes from feces. He says, okay, I come from feces. What's before the feces? More feces. And then, if you really want to get a fancy answer. Bang. Big bang.
Big bang. Big.
So what's that? The bolt of lightning. But the bolt of lightning presupposed Zeus. And what does the Big Bang presuppose? It's Big Bang. Another Big Bang. Bang, bang, bang. So, okay. So you just have to accept the inelectability of the bang.
Yeah. Right. So much for that. The conceit of inelectability.
Right.
The Christ is there to fix that.
Hmm?
The Christ is come to fix that in John 9. The issue of the inelectability.
He is a prophet.
Yeah.
In the story, he is recognized, but the blind man recognizes him as prophet.
Yeah, exactly.
Meaning that he is a teacher.
Yeah.
Of who is guiding us to the truth.
Mm-hmm. Guiding to the truth. This is my next the note that I read a little while before. The work of the Son of Man is to open eyes, or to manifest God in the realm of in the fallen realm, or nature in the realm of chance, however you wish to put it. The exact quote, I mean, I could read it. I have the I don't know if you're an NRSV guy. That's what I've got here. An NRSV guy, the new revised standard version.
Okay.
I don't know whether it's the newest revision.
Right.
It must have been fairly recent.
Okay.
Yeah. I'll read it here.
Well, the translations that I have in the article are the renderings that I give.
I suppose I might learn Greek myself someday. Well, we have the questions of the disciple. We've been over that. Who sinned? Neither his parents nor his man. We must work the works of him who sent me while it is day. Night is coming when no one can work. As long as I am in the world, I am the light of the world. That puzzles me. The day, of course, I can conceive of that as, my lifetime. That the ordinary life is day. A man works in a day. I wonder whether there isn't some sort of nod to Hesiod's works in days in this, or perhaps it's just that it's such an obvious choice of terms that we'd end up with that similarity. Yes, one works in a day naturally, and the day represents ordinary life, and then and perhaps the law as well, life under the law, maybe. And the night would, as you describe it, the activity of the soul, or a kind of divine activity, which we can't define at the right this second, but we'll get to, I think. But what I don't understand is why that night is described as coming. Does this relate to what you say about the future giving the present to die into the past? Tradition relates the night to resurrection. I see that way of viewing time is involved in that. Could one understand the night as the end of days, and the end of days as a vision of totality? Why is that spoken of in terms of a coming resurrection? That's the question I've written down here.
The night is coming. I refer to that. I give an account of that in the article. It is the Sabbath. It is a Sabbath.
Yes, on the day of the healing.
Yeah, and Sabbath is the day of God.
Mm-hmm.
So now the night is where men work in the day,
Yeah.
during the day. And who works at night? In other words, when people are sleeping, when people keep their eyes closed.
Yeah.
So when you open your eyes when you wake up in the daytime. But that work of man during the day presupposes the work of, well, we say the work of God at night. God is work in the night. But you cannot see his work. It is hidden because you're sleeping at night. So the only way, the only way you could sort of glean some sign of God's work at night is during the day, especially the Sabbath, which suggests that there is sort of this kind of interbeing of the two. In other words, the day is falling back into the night, and it presupposes that night. So the night is coming. Doesn't just mean mechanically, but we are going into the night. We are going into the night, and you will see, with other eyes in the night. It won't be your eyes.
The Sabbath, of course, is the divinely designated day of rest. God himself rests on the Sabbath. One can think in terms of, of course, the metaphysics, Aristotle's metaphysics are described as describing principles of rest. That relates to speech. It's not a kind of work. It's although of course there is the active and passive intellect, but not get too bogged down in definitions.
Yes, the Sabbath is the day to remember God's God's rest.
Yeah.
And how do we remember it? We remember it by resting ourselves.
Yeah.
We don't work.
Well, but then there is extra study on this rest day.
Yes, but it is precisely trying to figure out what is in the night.
Yeah, that's what the study is, right?
What is the work of God?
Well, as you put it one way, is opening eyes, which is, of course, exactly what is happening on that Sabbath.
So it is not that, that on the Sabbath, we are to understand that God is not doing anything. I know. I know. On the Sabbath, we rest. In other words, we could say that we close our eyes. We stop seeing with our own eyes. So that now, with other eyes, we can see what is going on in the night. Again, the 7 days in Genesis are not to be understood chronologically. There are logical, you could say, or ontological or ontoepistemic distinctions. Clearly, they're not chronological.
No.
They don't follow any kind of temporal order. So I'm opening up a facet of these problems that is not fully addressed by the article, but although it is addressed, but this the night is coming. What is the significance of the Sabbath? Is it that that there is no work, period? That God does not work? What does it mean that God is not working? Well, God has achieved what is visible, but now there is an invisible work, which we could call providential work, which has to do with not with making more things or with ordering more things, because the garden is there.
Yeah.
Man is in the garden. The image of God is, so God has, you could say, that is projected in this mirror. The garden is a mirror in which there is a place for God's image. So that's fine. That's done. Finished. Kaput. But at that point, what is God doing? Sleeping? On the seventh day, is he sleeping? There is more to it.
Yeah, that's what a theist would say.
Yeah. Yes. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So he made the clock, and now the clock runs.
Yeah. Throw it away. Never mind.
Well, sit down and wait for it to, I did my job. Now it's up to you folks. Do what you can with it. No, but there is, so clearly there is something a work that is underlying the daily work. And this is key. That's what we would normally call divine providence. There is a providence at work. But that divine providence immediately points to human providence. So the agency of man, of the Son of Man, in the day that is indissolubly linked to the night.
Yeah. Actually, my next note concerns providence, because you describe that as the nature of divine being awakening, and you relate that to providence. I don't have the exact phrasing here, but I took that to mean that how you've described providence previously and here also, in the sense that there's a pre-existing order that is available to men for discovery. And really what I wonder whether we're headed towards, the description of divine activity as thought thinking itself. Whether that's what this awakening is. Whether that's what the garden is there for, and why there's then a rest day that is providential that way.
Well, in Thomas Aquinas, notwithstanding the romantic and neo-romantic claim that, look, the biblical God, the God of Jacob, is not the God of Aristotle, who is the unmoved mover. Well, Thomas Aquinas states quite comfortably that God is the unmoved mover. Quite comfortably. He has no problem with it. However, we understand also, and he explains this as inviting us to appreciate that the unmoved mover, who is there for nothing other than itself, is also relatively to other things, so relatively to creatures, is there also for them and takes care of them. Relatively to them. That is to say that it has an impact, that thought thinking itself has a direct impact on our lives. It is a gravitational center of our lives. So we partake in it. We are blessed. We are blessed by its light. Well, no, we partake in it, and not because it's our choice. We partake in it in the respect that we're breathing, that we exist, and that we have some sort of being.
Yeah, but there's more. There's more to the story, right?
Huh?
There's more to the story, though.
In what respect?
Of course, we exist in a sense that we just, are. We live.
How we respond? Alive. If you mean how we respond to that,
yeah.
How we exist.
Yeah, I'm asking whether the real cream of the crop is, if you like, is the work that's being done in John 9.
Do we exist? Yes, we all exist. But we can fall into that existence and abandon, let us say, the light, turn back from the light, and draw the light into the dark, as well. This is in the negative sense of Lucifer, to betray our own being, and try to, betrayal brings forth also the imposture. This is the key to the problem of Inferno in Dante.
Yeah, the frozen imposture.
Remember, because once I betray, it's not enough for me. It's a compulsion. I'm falling into the compulsion. Once I betray, I want to, replace. I betray the king to become the new king, but I become the new king in hell.
Yeah.
So, there's this old advice: better to be, and of course, Aquinas is the first to appreciate this. It is better to be the last among the angels than to be the best among the. So it is better to have little knowledge of the highest things than to have a lot of knowledge of nothing, really, of dust.
Of course, the Gospels put it more bluntly. They say it is that way. In some way, that the least among the least in hell are the best in heaven, as it were.
Yes, but that that is to say that the standards are not the same.
Yeah.
So in other words, that which is considered to be low in the eyes of the blind is what is rejected by them is precisely rejected the way it is praised in other eyes, for the same reason. So the man who is crucified is the good man who was
Yeah.
raised. Precisely, he was not crucified because he went against the laws. That was just a pretext, obviously. There's all, we see this all the time. There's an obvious, there are rhetorical questions that are being asked. The guy is being framed all the time. The issue is not the superficial one. The issue is that he's a good man. Now, their problem is that they're dealing with a good man, a man who's living in the light of the good. So you're not supposed to do that. You're not supposed to do that. So they hate him because of that, because his presence, ego eimi, I am here, present. His presence reminds them of their imposture. And their betrayal. Oh shoot, I am an imposter. I don't want to, the king is naked, but I don't want this to be made manifest. And why not? Because if I expose the imposture, you see, then that brings us back to the betrayal that made the imposture possible. And that betrayal, that's a capital sentence, it's that does it. If we expose that, then, oh my goodness, that's very painful, very painful.
One wails and gnashes one's teeth.
What?
One wails and gnashes one's teeth.
In the face of that exposure.
Yeah.
Could it be that we have this authority that we have, that this has been made possible by a fundamental betrayal, so that that we would be imposters? Now, for Socrates to expose folks around him as imposters, you claim to be so and so, and he is exposing this. They're imposters. What does that mean? It means that he is exposing not only these folks, that's they're in some way, in some visceral way, they're fully aware of this. He's not just exposing them as fake rulers, as fake authorities. He's exposing something more fundamental, something more dreadful.
They're fake people.
The betrayal.
Yeah.
I can deal with the fact that I'm an imposter if we left it at that. Okay, fine, I cheated on my exam. Fine, I purchased my papers. Fine, I paid off that politician to get my position. Okay, I'm somewhat of an imposter, but who cares? Everybody's an imposter. It's okay.
Yeah, shit happens.
Yeah, well, that's a system.
Yeah.
But if we start seeing that everybody's an imposter here, and that it's not necessary to be an imposter, and so that we can have an investigation, a pure investigation of this problem of the imposture, then we can dig further and discover that the imposture presupposes, requires, necessitates as its condition of possibility a betrayal. Now that is the big problem. There has been a betrayal. we're in a cave. We're acting as if, we're living as if we were in a cave, platonically. But we're not. We're not. So Plato's cave, again, is not telling, the story is not telling us that we're really in a cave. You could say that ironically. It is telling us that we're not, but that we have betrayed our proper place, and that as a result of that betrayal, we have projected ourselves into impostures who are living in the cave.
Yeah.
And these impostures living in the cave is not what we are. So first of all, you have to stop thinking of yourself in these grandiose terms, which really boil down to, here, look, you are in a cave here.
Yeah.
Then you recognize that you can come out of that situation because you're not really in the cave. You see, you have fallen into this imposture. But that imposture presupposes a betrayal. Oh, that's the difficult part. And Christianity is also about this. Mea culpa, in the sense of this, I've done something terrible. I've betrayed. What have I betrayed? Things as they are. And my own true nature. I am fallen now. So I want to keep going with this. I want to keep building up castles in the cave. Or, and here's John 9, there is an alternative telos to the human being. We're not born for this. We're not born to be kings in the cave. Our testimony, the testimony that we are to give, is not of that sort. It is not my glory here in this cave that gives testimony to reality, to the reality that underlies the any and all society, any and all moral life. The testimony that is given is by the rejected, by the poor, by these nothing. It is given by the cross. It is given by pain, by suffering. It is thus old age that reminds us, you could say decrepitude, that reminds us more of reality than birth and youth. Because birth and youth, yes, are a kind of promise of another world. They're promising, as we say, the child is born, and it makes us, optimistic, beautiful. But it's not quite as significant as decrepitude and death, because that is showing us that the night is coming more than the birth and the youth. It is pain, not, this fun. The best reminds us, and the best bears witness to reality, to truth.
The pain of struggling against evil, or the pain that
you're given. The cross even is not a question of just struggling. It is a question of, look, we're in this crappy situation, and horrible things happen in this world. Oh, you're not supposed to look at it. So the first thing that the modern world does is get rid of the old people, and say, if you're old, try to look young.
Yes, I understand
pretend to be young.
I understand the way in which modernity pretends. Maybe this is going to get to one of my questions. We'll see.
Okay.
I understand the way, because modernity is just pain. It's kind of like a choice, right? It's kind of like a choice. You could take a medication and no more pain.
Pain is bad. Suffering is bad. The cross is bad. There is no meaning. It doesn't tell us anything. It doesn't.
No, of course.
Now, of course, now you have a pre-Socratic lesson. It says, "Oh, suffering teaches us wisdom."
I don't see it.
Suffering, no. but thinking about suffering, yes. In other words, suffering is the pain, is the cross, doesn't teach you wisdom.
No,
It is a
yeah,
sign, the sign that
yeah,
prompts you to think, to open yourself up
very
to
good,
thinking, to
very good.
open yourself up to thinking.
I wanted to qualify one of my earlier little remarks about wailing and gnashing of teeth. I've heard that this expression doesn't indicate so much remorse as madness, so that these madmen are in a way in the worst pain imaginable, but they might not learn from that, and that's why they're stuck there. Is is that is that fair?
Well, when you're faced, look, the 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 the, the, the fellow who sold Jesus for some gold,
Yeah,
he's stuck there, and he hangs himself. Um, he can't he can't face it, and he has to face it. He's condemned. He has condemned himself to face something he can't face. He can no longer face, and he has to deny his own being. He rejects his being because being becomes a curse for him.
they're living a lie, as it were.
Expose. Yes, you have to. You can't live with it. You can't live with it. This I can live with the recognition of the imposture, but I can't live with the face of the betrayal.
That much is there without modernity. That temptation was firmly rooted already.
Temptation in the Gospels addressing it. The
Yeah,
Gospels address it, and this is the modernity. You speak of modernity. We're talking about the modern world, which is the um, the coming of age of the well, this unfolding, I should say, the unfolding of the Machiavellian revolution.
yeah, but that's so much for the political project, which in some ways, the second cave is kind of the ultimate betrayal. That human beings could affect together and perpetuate into the ages. But
where the consummate end is collaboration.
yeah, and I suppose I'm not very familiar with the book of Revelation, but I suppose that's there too. The beast making a little idol of the beast that talks and tells them what is it? There are three beasts, I think, or is it two? People end up worshiping this talking idol. I wonder whether that's the warning.
Well, sure. There's there are warnings. There are signs. There is prophecy. But easier said than done, because the signs on their own do not teach us much.
No.
It is exposing ourselves fundamentally to thought, to thinking as something that is so an activity that is in no way bound to to finitude, really, in itself. And that is, although it is within itself, it also serves as a guide. So it is a gravitational center for our lives. So,
yeah, that's how you described divine thought, self-reflection, as a kind of torrent or a kind of pool. Is that reference, is that repetition of those terms intentional? Is your repetition of those terms intentional?
where?
As a poll. You described that this prophecy is supposed to invite us to thought that is not limited to finitude. You described that as a kind of poll. So are we identifying those two thoughts, those two kinds of thinking?
What two kind of thinking?
The divine self-reflection and that to which the book of Revelation is inviting us.
And the question is?
Are those two to be identified?
Yeah.
Because you described them in the same way with the same words,
right?
Whether that was intentional or not.
Right. Well, that is the big question. Why did I bring up Thomas Aquinas? Because he is clear about he has no problems with qualms with Aristotle's lesson about God. So God is the unmoving mover, who is perfect reason and the pure mind, and so thought, mens is both thinking and mind. Now he does state this, for example, he states this in this Summa contra Gentiles, the compendium, you could say, of arguments against the Gentiles. In connection with the argument that first you consider things in themselves, and that's the most important thing, to consider things in themselves, but you can also consider them with respect relatively to other things. So, well, in itself, this is the best formula for him. Okay, so these are the best formulas, the formulas of philosophy. They're formulas. The formulas of philosophy are best to address what God is in himself. But God is also in what is relative to others. God is relative to others too. And in the respect that he is relative to, or it, he deserves, because when we speak relatively to others, to us, to our life. So relatively to us, then he is what the prophets and the Revelation and so forth speak of in terms of, okay? So no problem. He is there. He is relatively to us as well. It's not a lie. It's true. Now, he is relatively to us so that we can go to him.
Yeah, that was what my earlier question was concerning, really. I have even superlative on that question, actually, because I asked earlier whether the work of man in the day was ultimately, or the work of the Son of Man in the day in John 9 was ultimately to the fact of thought thinking itself, and whether that's the purpose of man as such, to be participating in this. There's a superlative here that I could also propose, which is that life, that life of awakening, that for which the cosmos is there, and is if the look. The point of the article is to not focus on the will in the situation of the blind man, but to go to the order behind the will, one might say, to see the will as tending towards intellect in theological terms. And there is also then that bears on creation as not being as being interpreted demiurgically, so as an ordering, so that the universe would be eternal.
Yes, but okay.
Co-eternal, a sort of eternally willed, as it were, as presupposed by this.
No, will cannot be eternal.
No.
I mean,
no.
It is not. If there is an eternal world, that is not willed world. It is the world insofar as it is eternally, theologically speaking, eternally in God.
Yes, but essentially as a part of that thought. That's where
that would be yes, but that would be the purely intelligible world.
Yes.
So there is a purely intelligible world.
Yeah.
And that is what the world is, purely in God.
Okay, so you wouldn't
relatively to God, but relative, but then for us, the world is not eternal.
No, but the universe that is being ordered, that's the one we live in. Yes.
Yeah.
So that ordering presupposes, of course, the noetic order, which is where that thought resides, and yet the physical universe on a demiurgic reading would be eternal. So therefore, it would be an eternal.
No, the physical world cannot be as such cannot be eternal.
It's finite. Okay, that's a misunderstanding.
Yes, then the physical world as such is finite.
Okay, so
I mean, look at it in a very even a child can understand this, right? Where are the limits of the physical? If it were infinite, then it would fall apart. It is as water that requires a vase. Without the vase, water falls apart, disperses itself.
Yeah.
Well, if there were no something that contains things, then you would not see anything.
Right.
Nothing.
Like saying,
light disappears.
Like saying, if all is one, then there is no motion.
Yes, but it's a question of yes, because motion doesn't go anywhere. It's sort of an inverted metaphor. But if you need something to contain, you need a limit. Otherwise, everything falls apart and disappears at once. There could be nothing without a limit. So there has to be a boundary to the universe.
Sure.
However, that boundary cannot be of the nature of something that entails that there's something on the other side of the wall.
Yeah.
So
yeah, I've thought about that.
Right. So I mean, this is obvious. I mean, and even a child, I think, can reach the conclusion that. Now, on the other hand, okay, so that's the problem. If it's finite, if it's finite, then what's on the other side? Mm-hmm. But if it's infinite, then it falls apart.
Yeah.
So neither one. So that the ancients would often speak of the world as a kind of dream. I mean, it's as speaking of the limits of the imagination. Where are the boundaries of the world of the imagination, right? the never-ending story kind of.
Ukrainian.
Okay.
That's what they are.
Yes. So, where are the boundaries of the world of imagination? In the world of imagination of dreams, what are the boundaries of dreams? So the ancients would speak about the universe as being a dream of God, of course, the mind of God. So ultimately, it is mind, it is thought that contains the world, and this also brings, of course, into question the nature of space. So space is defined by things. It's not that things are in space, but that space is disclosed by the presence of things.
Kind of abstraction.
There's no abstract or absolute space or time for that matter. It is just that if there's a thing, then there's a space for it.
You would not know otherwise. Yeah.
No, but right, because anything.
It's the best another inference. Okay.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, you could also go to the Zeno's arrows and so forth. You know, it's you know, there's no such thing as an absolute space or absolute time.
Okay, good. Well, I'm familiar to thinking in these terms, but then I think it would tend all the more to the conclusion that I wanted to sort of propose with this question that I had, because the question is whether then what we call the physical universe is integral to divine self-reflection, whether it is a necessary part of it.
Well, look, sometimes we speak about Plato or Platonism as in very narrow terms. But if you understand Platonism as a noble term for kind of a common sense view of things, okay? Or natural inclinations to see things as they are. Then we see, okay, what does Plato suggest? And again, Plato as a spokesperson of common sense, okay? How, you know, as it flourishes through participation in thought, but through the opening, as we open ourselves to thinking. Well, the physical is the shadows in the cave, but that is precisely the point. There is no shadows without some source. The shadow,
which the fire is parroting.
Yes, right? Of course. Now, the shadows in the light of their source are not just shadows. They are there for a reason. So you have to understand at this point the shadows in the light of the poets who are, you know, the people who are making things there. And yet those poets, that poetry, and so the stories they're telling, the ethos of these poets is, however, to be understood as a pointer to something more fundamental. So the physical, you could say, is an illusion that is produced as a result of our ignorance of poetry, of our alienation from the work that is proper to the human being. Our masters are not the politicians. They are, in our corrupt society, they are our entertainers. They're the ones who are ruling, not the politicians. Politicians are there as marionettes. We are formed by, we are shaped, we are brought up by the entertainment industry today in the corrupt society.
Yeah.
In the technological society, especially, we have the entertainment business. This entertainment business eclipses the original nature, function, role of the arts in, well, obviously they disclose the possibility of our remaining there, looking at the shadows, but they're, when properly, cultivated, these arts also invite us to cultivate them. And as we cultivate these arts, we recognize that, we can recognize that, our job is not to keep people in front of the shadows. Our job is to cultivate people to rise to the level of the artist. Now, this artist or poet, poetic artist, is imitating. So we have, it is not the terminus ad quem of the whole stories. It's not the end of the story. So we have an enlightened artist who is recognizing the poetic core of all the arts as something that points back to what is more fundamental. And so now all of a sudden, it is not a matter of saying, okay, the physical is just an image of the ethical, or the nature is, in modern terms, you would say, nature is a shadow or a reflection of, or should be, in fact, because of that, should be absorbed into this historical, the social. So nature becomes a function of the human, the new human. No. The shadows, the physical, the natural, so to speak, which is the physical, is to be understood in some way, in some provisional only way, as a shadow of the arts, because the arts themselves are there to be exposed, to be opened up to the question of their own foundation. And where is their foundation? In an order of things that their ordering presupposes. So, to wrap things up a bit here, the arts are providential, can be understood adequately only as providential in the lives and the education of the human beings. And you have children who are raised. So how can you raise them without stories? The storytellers, the poets, the artists are educating them. But when they're educating them, they're not educating them only to stop at the arts, but to rise further to something more fundamental, which is that for the sake of which, in reality, even though painters and musicians and poets and all kinds of people don't know that, because they think that, the goal is to be me in my own function, my own category. But that is only one sphere of life. There are other spheres of life. The goal is beyond this. So my sphere of life now, all of a sudden, Socratically, Socrates exposes this. Oh, you're an imposter. Because to the extent that I don't understand that there is something more fundamental, I am an imposter. So he opens that up. Now you have to go through this whole big deal, which Christianity talks a lot about contrition, facing this horror of the betrayal. If you can get through the betrayal, now you recognize, oh, there is a fundamental order that is presupposed by the ordering of things by the artists. That's what allowed us to do this in the first place. And that's what, as artists, we should be calling the children back to. Not just our art, and of course, not just the shadows, which are extensions, what the kids get from our art. You know, children are mesmerized by these tricks without understanding the art that is behind the tricks. So they watch the film, but they don't see where the projector is, you know, where it's coming from, what's behind the film and behind them as they watch, right? They're given toys, but they don't see what's going on behind them. It's not enough for the child to play with his toys. You should have the toys to help him turn around and say, ooh, what's going on behind me? Why are the toys there to begin with? But it's not enough for him to become a toy maker or a filmmaker. That's not the goal. Or to assume that the filmmaker is a god, or that the basketball player is a superhero. And again, all of these are the new gods. You see, the artist as God, the romantic view.
Yes.
This, you know, the artist as superhero, and as finally as divinity. No. The whole point is to return to the fundamental order of things. The world as it is in itself is not physical. That's just a shadow of something, which in some respect is not a shadow, but fundamentally, really, it is bound to a fundamental order, something prior. So here, this allows us to speak about, and to better understand divine providence as this fundamental agency. Divine providence is none other than the fundamental order of things relatively to everything else. The way it affects, the way it serves as gravitational center of life. That's general providence, divine providence. Then you have human providence, which is that the artists, the poets, the heroes, properly understood, they are heroes. They are the educators, properly understood, properly live the life of that. Plato is not a poet? Of course he is. He writes. Anybody who's writing is an artist, a poet. What else is it? The art of writing. They are, it is fair to say, the presence of the fundamental order relatively to our lives for the children. Okay. The child does not have any clue of the fundamental order of things. He has a sense of it through the stories that he's told. But that sense is not enough. He has to go from the sense, so the shadows, to the stories, and from the stories to the fundamental order. So we have the fundamental order signaling divine providence, general providence in traditional terms, formal terms, special providence signaled by the prophetic arts, prophetic with respect to the fundamental divine providence or the divine order of things. And then, of course, we have our physical world, which is the world of children, the world that is never in itself, but it's always exposed to all kinds of other things more fundamental. And that's why children are, the life of a child is so filled with fears and so confused, because there's this avalanche of reality that is
Yeah.
assailing them as they look at these shadows.
Things seem so huge and vivid when you're a child. Of course, you're small, but they also seem very much more alive, it seems to me. Sometimes bordering on monstrous. It's
yeah, because it's an avalanche of reality that is flowing into these little things. A leaf.
Yeah.
You have a little piece of paper and you cling on to it as if it were your life, because a child is fallen. You've fallen in a world of determinations. It could be a nothing. It could be a little nothing, something like this. I found this, and he's going to give his life for it, and he's going to fight to defend it.
Yeah, it really,
You know how they fight for nothing. You say, but it's nothing. Let go, because and this is their little cosmos. It's filled with this, with the presence of being, but they don't know what, because they turn their back away from it.
Yeah.
So
is this it?
Yes.
Is this it?
It's all there. This is my problem.